you check the news, I guarantee you'll see headlines about the AI arms race and how that's going to change the world we live in. All the while, ChatGPT and Google's Bard go viral, and Microsoft and Google's value goes straight up. And the reality is there's a massive arms race going on right now in big tech. People are asking, ChatGPT versus Bard, Microsoft versus Google, who will win? And sure, ChatGPT may be better at certain things, and Bard may be better than it at others. But that's at the time of this filming, and none of that really matters. There's a hidden truth that nobody's talking about when comparing ChatGPT versus Bard and who's gonna win and which is better. And I'm gonna be diving into this hidden truth. And not only that, at the end, I'm gonna be explaining why this is all important to you and how you can put yourself in the best position to take advantage of these tools and the new AI technology. And if you're new here, I'm Mac and Cheesy. Hit the like button and buckle up. ChatGPT took the world by storm in 2022 when it grew to over 1 million users in less than 5 days. This put major tech companies like Google on notice. Why? Because people could use ChatGPT for the same things they use Google for, i.e. search for information. In fact, since ChatGPT came out, I pretty much never Google anything. And as a result, Google was put in this weird spot called the innovator's dilemma. And this basically is when an existing and established company has to juggle between innovating and potentially hurting their existing customer base and not innovating so they can serve their existing customers. If that sounds confusing, well, a classic example is Polaroid, and they passed up on innovating with digital photo because they had the Polaroid camera, and they didn't want to hurt their existing business by pushing this innovation. But in Polaroid's case, by not innovating, this actually led to their demise, and now they're just a nostalgia company. So as pressure grew, Google had this struggle between innovating and doing something that could impact search, and just watching as ChatGPT took the world by storm, and they decided to innovate. And that's their new service, Bard, which is a ChatGPT competitor. And just like that, we had an arms race on our hands. So who is better, ChatGPT or Bard? Well, from a user perspective, what are the fundamental differences? There aren't many. They look and feel very similar. At the end of the day, you can just talk to it and type and have a conversation with it. And besides that, the results they get vary, but not really that much. And because they're both innovating so fast, I anticipate that the products themselves are actually going to be fairly comparable. So what is the hidden truth that nobody's talking about when comparing these two services? And what will be the difference between why ChatGPT or Bard will win? Fundamentally, ChatGPT is a small startup in comparison to Google. And as a result, there is a significantly higher standard that Google's AI, Bard, is held to in relation to OpenAI. And when I talk about a high standard, I'm talking about the results that it returns. If OpenAI returns an incorrect result, people are like, oh, it's just AI, it's a scrappy startup. But if you look at Google's Bard, this is now associated with the Google brand. So from a consumer side, they hold it to a significantly high standard. And as a result, Google takes on more risk. And is this a real issue? Well, yes, because there's a concept called hallucinating. Now, is this a real issue? Well, there's an idea of hallucination in AI, where an AI will get off track and provide false information. And Google's like, wait, this is a major concern for our company. And ChatGPT is like, we don't care, YOLO. And look no further than the user experiences. You go to Bard and they have it stapled all over it from the top left, Bard, this is an experiment, to when you start a chat, it's like the results you're gonna get are not always right. It's screaming in your face, we don't want liability. And then you go to ChatGPT and you gotta search for this disclaimer and it's at the bottom in small text, hey, these answers might not be right. And that's partially why ChatGPT was released before Bard and brought out into the wild. They could do these things and take on more risk, whereas Google was hesitant to do that. So now as this scrappy startup, ChatGPT actually as a smaller company now has more flexibility to do things that are more cutting edge. Okay, so ChatGPT gets to be a little bit more of a gunslinger. Sure, but there's a couple of important things to consider when looking at these different AIs, and the second one might actually be more important. Well, the first thing that's absolutely critical is access to information. Long story short, the more data you have, the better the AI is going to be. And now the second thing that I think is more important is distribution. As these AIs progress, I believe a lot of the data that they're going to have access to is going to be commoditized. And as a result, 90 to 95% of the use cases for whether it's using ChatGPT or Bard, the results are going to be indistinguishable from the average user. So I don't think there's going to be a true technological competitive advantage. So what does it come down to? Distribution. So for me, it's simple. It's not which company has a better product. Instead, it's which company or which AI can have better distribution. And ChatGPT sure had first mover advantage and got out to millions of users, but what does Google have? Google and Bard have all of the Google services and one little thing that kind of is a big deal, Google search. So the hidden truth behind all this that nobody's going to be talking about is that the product doesn't really matter. It's the distribution that matters. And what Google has with search is the ability to abstract away from users that they're using an AI, but instead they're just using search. But in the background, Google is using Bard to serve answers. Now with all that, right? Bard versus ChatGPT, how does this impact you? Well, the reality is this is just another example of big tech companies getting more and more powerful. And although government regulation might restrict some of this power, it's hard to think that the rules and regulations are going to be harsh on the companies that are actually helping create the regulations. And as an entrepreneur, as a young adult, and as somebody who wants to thrive in this economy, AI is here. So the government's not going to stop it. Your mom saying AI is the worst isn't going to stop it. You commenting on this video that I'm wearing a pink hat in the summer in Florida is not going to stop it. We have to adapt. And the best way to actually do that is to use it every single day. In my company, I tell every single one of our team members that they should be using it at least 5 times a day. And that doesn't matter if it's as small as doing 2 + 2 = 4, or planning a trip, or doing things that aren't work related, but you should be getting familiar with it. And now when you're using it, one tip that I tell everybody is to think like an executive. How would an executive instruct the AI? And I say that, think of it like an employee. How would Steve Jobs tell somebody that he wanted this done? He'd be specific, he'd give clear deliverables, and he'd set expectations. So when you're using this, think like an executive, think like Steve Jobs. And if you want more videos like this on how you can continue to take advantage of AI, go check this out, or don't. I got thoughts that circle